Looks like I'm the only one in the meeting again, so I will continue the final part of Unit 2 of the IQA Level 4 award. We looked previously at Unit 1, and it's understanding the principles and practices of internally assuring the quality of assessment. And the Unit 2 is internally assure the quality of assessment. In other words, the first one is knowing about it, the second one is actually doing it. So, as an example, in your explanation of your knowledge in Unit 1, the documents that you produce for there, as I said before, can also be used in Unit 2. But this is to show that you've done, you've quality assured a number of students. One of the things that people forget is the wide range of experience the IQA should have. But having said that, he will have suitable backup from the management team within his college, and also in the college. Some colleges have a quality team, and he's got them to refer back to as well. In some colleges, the IQA is actually the leader of the quality team. And of course, they relay information from the data they collect during the operation of the college and school. They can feed then that data back into the management system to make any alterations or changes that are deemed to be necessary from the data that's being developed. One of the things that I wanted to cover again, and I brought it up on the last one, and it was, I'm going to quickly go over it again. I'm going to do this one up here. It's going to be quickly. It's all. It's all now. This is having the strategy. I went through this last time. I'm just going to cover some of the main points again now. The strategy will say, it will outline how the internal quality assurer will manage the programs that are under control and the assessors. So if you're looking at the examination of assessment records, reports and any feedback, I altered that before it's gone back again. It should say feedback, of course. For new assessors, they need to be observed during their duties closer together, but for experienced assessors, just once a year. There should be at least one interim and one final internal verification. Many assessors don't use the formative stage of the assessment to get it verified, and it really they should do. If you've got a number of units that are being done together, it may be that 2 or 3 or even 4 of them are complete that have only got partly staff, and use that formative assessment process to give good feedback to the student. If it can be caught at an earlier stage, quite often I find students have picked up the wrong impression of what they're supposed to be doing, and they've made a start on 2 or 3 units in the wrong way. And if it can be, feedback can be given at that point to point in the right direction, then it saves lots of work and extra work and rework for the student to make sure that, I mean, it is the responsibility to make sure they understand what they've got to do. And all of us are online and available by email or telephone. If a student's got an issue, ring up or email about it. Don't just plough on regardless, thinking that everything's going to be okay. Standardisation, again, records kept in a centre file. Centre file will produce and contain a list of assessors and their qualifications and experience. A list of registered candidates, this is most important, and the dates of the registration. an overall sampling plan over a given period covering all registered candidates. Now, a sampling plan, I was hoping to have actually got one on here for you. I'll put one on later. An example of a sampling plan. I thought I had one on my system, but I haven't, that I've used before. But I will find one, I will pull it into the Moodle platform so that you can look through it and see what it should contain. Because a sampling plan is for a given period. If you've got students that are, especially in some organisations where they've got what they call roll on, roll off. In other words, they don't have a set inauguration and induction day for a number of students, and then they do the course and they come off it at a certain time. Some programs are on what they call roll on, roll off. So students start and they start on a certain date and they start working towards a qualification. Some more students will start the following month and they'll be a month behind them. This is why it's important for sampling plans and the registration of the students and the dates, so that the earlier ones can be put on the earlier sampling plans and the later ones can be added as the sampling plan rolls forward. Generally, a sampling plan shouldn't be done for more than 3 months in advance. Over that 3-month period, samples of, and I tend to not emphasise this enough, samples are just that, and they don't need to be the whole qualification, they don't need to be just need to be a unit or 2 units out of the qualification for each student. But not the same 2, you'd probably do 1 the same as a control unit, like I've said, to make sure everybody's assessing in the same way. But after that, it's just a random selection of units across the qualification and across the students. There's no way, if you've got large numbers of students, that you could internally verify every unit of every qualification. With small numbers of students on board, for this qualification, there's only 5 on board. That means I can 100%, well, I'll be assessing this program, so Raman will be able to internally verify all the units of each student. That's what we call 100% IV, and it makes sure at a later date, when the external verifier comes in, it's very clear for him to be able to pick up and look at any unit, and it's been covered already. Again, copies of interim internal verifiers reports to assessors with any actions and feedback. This is, like I said, if you do it early enough, if there's any issues that crop up, they can be dealt with quickly, and then towards the end of the program, it's just a formality really of going through, checking the evidence, making sure the students completed everything we're supposed to complete, everything's signed and dated properly as well, not just a few papers, but each thing's done properly. Any actions, and this is again important, any actions must be cleared and recorded before an external verifier's visit. Because the first thing he'll do is he's reading through something and say, I've got an action outstanding here, why has it not been finished off? I'm not signing that off. This is the sort of thing that happens. Records of any claims for certification are always kept on file. Literally everything that you do is kept on file. Again, working towards, this was a specific one, but it works actually for everyone. We work towards a standard portfolio with these awards, determining what we will contain and in what order they will appear. And I'm going to come back to that for some other reason in a minute. Copies of all centre assessment materials, copies of internal verification documents, copies of standards of each award they assess, and access to any training support. That's what assessors need from the IQA. This last bit is really paper portfolios. If they come in for formative IV at some point, then they need to be cleared and back out again within 3 weeks. The strategy has 3 strands: sample assessment methods, monitor assessment practice, and standardise assessment and judgment. Again, the strategy is a working document and may be amended from time to time to comply with recommendations from the external verifier or the college quality team. Numbered amended copies will be put in force and previous versions destroyed, so there's no overlap. Close that one down. Finish up the suggested evidence. Why is that appeared again? Oh, we're waiting. What have I done? We have an issue with the word document for some reason. It's come up. Running quickly through this: copies of sampling plans, copies of internal monitoring correspondence, copies of monitoring documentation, copies of assessor training needs analysis, experience or inexperience, etc. Copies of assessor feedback with rationale, copies of IQA decisions and reports, copies of IQA feedback, copies of standardisation meetings, dialogue, comparing assessor decisions and suggested evidence. I'll just cover that as well. At a standardisation meeting now, a lot of EVs are recommending that we issue, we've got at least 3 assessors. It's not important with less than that, but if you have at least 3 assessors in your group, each assessor is given a copy of a student's work, the same student's work, 3 different copies, 3 copies of that work, and then the assessors will assess the standard against the standards of that piece of work to see whether they're all agreeing that it has passed or not passed, as the case may be, so that the decisions are then considered reliable. Again, copies of IQA reports with feedback. If not including development notes, i.e. it was all okay, add the sort of ways in which you could do this. Yeah, so that provides feedback which help them to maintain and improve the quality of assessment. Apply a procedure to standardise assessment and practice. Now, it's standardisation minutes, but also on that one, it will cover things like if you've done that operation, if you've got the decisions made by more than a couple of assessors on a particular student's work to show that you've reached the same assessment. So copies of those could go in there, yeah. Again, 4.1, cross refer straight to Unit 1. 4.2, cross refer straight to Unit 1. Follow procedures to maintain confidentiality of IQ information. Apply procedures for recording, storing and transporting. These will be, from Unit 1, your school or college's policy and procedure. And you will have copies of those, I presume, in your centre file. If you have, then it can show where you've used that procedure in terms of managing the information. Explain relevant procedures regarding disputes and about the quality of assessment. Refer to PowerPoint slides for main points to enlarge on, but I'll add that here. All the body that you're dealing with will have a complaints procedure or dispute procedure, where it will be, to give you some idea, the school should have as well, and it should say something like, what can I say? In the first instance, a student should take up the issue with the assessor. If they still cannot agree, it will go to the internal verifier or internal quality assurer, whoever that may be, and he will make, or she will make a decision in regard to the dispute. Notwithstanding that, if after the IQA has made that decision, if the student is still unhappy, then they have a right to appeal to the awarding body, or virtually to the external quality assurer. First, it will be. Personally, as I said, I've never known anybody go that route, and in fact, some qualifications, I think it's City and Guilds, used to have a charge for that. If a student wanted to take it to that level, then he had to pay a charge beforehand. If it was upheld, he would get his money back. But I don't know if they still do that or not. Evaluate the requirements for information management, data protection and confidentiality in relation to the IQA assessment. This will be if you've got electronic or paper portfolios coming into the centre, what happens to them? Are they kept under lock and key? Who has control of them? Who can see them? All that sort of thing. And those will be determined by your own colleges or schools' policy and procedure in that level. Well, that's asking for an evaluation. So again, Unit 1 pretty well asks for evaluation, but check just to make sure that it does. Apply the requirements for equality and diversity where appropriate, bilingualism in relation to IQA. In most cases, this very rarely occurs, but if there should be a position where that must happen, then there should be a policy or a procedure that you can refer to within the school or college. Again, it's asking for a critical reflection of your own practice on IQA here, how you actually operate, yeah, and how you think you operate in terms of maintaining the quality of the assessment process. That's what another point I wanted to mention. When I say that the IQA nowadays leads into the management structure, that is because if you're reflecting on your own practice and internally assuring the quality of assessment, it's that you're looking at, the quality of the assessment process. Now, the assessment process is governed by the policies and procedures within the school. If there are issues that are occurring that, again, on reflection, you could say, well, we need to change that, or that doesn't actually work, then those are the things you can then put through as recommendations to the management of the college or school in terms of getting things changed so that they then will reflect what needs to be done rather than what you've got laid down. Everything changes on a regular basis. Nothing stays the same. So consequently, maintain the currency of your own expertise and competence in internally assuring the quality of assessment. Explain any use of CPD in relation to the IQA process, what's available. Various awarding bodies from time to time will run courses for IQAs that they have, you know, on with centres that they have. It's well worth visiting those. I think I've said fairly early on in this qualification that one of the things that I've noticed is that in the last nearly 30 years now, many things have changed. I started to do assessment in 1988-89 in a workshop and a work environment. I was a union rep, and we were chosen as the first skilled tradesman to actually govern the training of apprentices. We had no qualifications at that time. Qualifications were developed, and they became what everyone knows now as D32 and D33. I enrolled for those units and passed those units very quickly because I had a number of apprentices within my jurisdiction, and I could start to gather evidence together to show that I had actually done the assessments and to what standard. A number of changes have been made to those standards over the years, and the first one when it became A1 for assessors and A2, or V1 and V2 for internal verifiers. I gained my assessor award around about 1992, and then in 1995-96 I gained my IQA or internal verifiers award. That was a D34 originally, and that changed again to V1, V2. It's now changed to Unit 1 and Unit 2 for IQA and Unit 1 and Unit 3 for assessors. There are some minor changes to the meat of what's inside, but the bulk of the operation remains the same. Very little has changed. Yeah. So looking at the overall picture is that all learning outcomes for any unit must be assessed using the methods appropriate to the candidate. IQA performance, these ones include observation of performance, examination of products of work, questioning, direct evidence of this kind may be supplemented with professional discussion, reflective accounts of witness testimony. Evidence must come from IQA candidate, that's yourselves, their performance in the work environment. Must be evidence AQA candidate monitoring a minimum of 2 assessors, each minimum of 2 candidates for qualification being taught or delivered. So, your portfolio will consist of mainly documentary evidence for Unit 2, but for Unit 1, it will contain a number of explanations and descriptions of what you do and how you actually operate and your understanding of those. So 2 units, once are complete, give you the full picture. I'm just going to bring something else up if I can find it. I think I've lost it actually. It's a sampling plan. I don't seem to find it just a second. There as well. I don't want what. Give me a minute. I shall try and find it. Is it? I hope. No, for some reason, not it. That. Possibly find it, bring that up. a little slow loading, but I'm loading it from yeah, this is something I linked at from Stevenson College, and excellence and innovation in learning. Talk to the internal verification process in detail. And there's quite a bit of information on this, which I will load onto the VLE for the Moodle platform for you. So the scope, the verifying of assessments. Oops. And it is the role of the internal verifier, not IQA. So it's an older piece, but it's got some very, very useful information in there that you'll be able to use. Yeah. The role of the internal verifier. Creating assessment plans. Using sampling plans to regulate. Yeah. Use assessment forms, and they've got those as I'll just run down to the bottom of them to see if they've got any appendices. No, it's an internal, one of the internal document numbers. That. What I'll do before this meeting this afternoon, I will go through this document. I'll also find some examples of sampling plans, and I'll put both this document and the sampling plan onto the VLE so that you can access them when you complete your portfolio. Okay. Again, about portfolios, what I want to do is just have a quick word about putting them together. Your evidence for this, both Unit 1 and Unit 2, will consist of, as I said, a pile of documents. Rather than put all your documents down as appendices, what you could do is, in Unit 1 especially, examples of a document and then your explanation beneath it, and put it into pages and number the pages, yeah, so that afterwards you could then put together what your evidence is. In other words, my evidence for sampling plans on page 7. Yeah, and that way you can tabulate where your evidence is and make the portfolio easy to read for both your assessor and the internal verifier, so that you've got it in a logical fashion, followed by Unit 2, which will consist of the documents. Documents will be on page numbers. Yeah, I'll just put where the numbers are, with the put weight on the front. Yeah, so you'll have a reference on the watch each item is and what page it's on. That way, you'll have an forward portfolio which you will be able to, put onto the. You can actually, I meant to highlight this. You can actually load any documents you've completed onto the VLE so they can be picked up by either myself or Alan and assessed and feedback given as fast as that. So please use that where you can, but by all means email it if you prefer to do that. So with that, I'm going to close the session this afternoon, and I'll put those pieces onto this the VLE so that you can move on later on. Thanks for anyone who attended or didn't, and I will speak to you all soon.